The first time I saw him, he looked like trouble. Not the kind of trouble that gets you arrested, more like the kind that walks into your life uninvited, rearranges your carefully stacked plans, and laughs while the whole damn tower collapses. I should have known better than to let a stranger into my world. But rent was high, my savings were low, and desperation had a way of turning never into maybe. His name was Adrian. Just Adrian. The kind of guy who carried his secrets the way others carried keys, always within reach, but never handed over. When I opened the door that rainy afternoon, he stood on my porch with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a smirk that didn't reach his tired eyes. "You said you needed a roommate," he said, voice low, almost careless. "Well, here I am." And just like that, I let him in. I told myself it was temporary. A stranger splitting bills, nothing more. But nights stretched into mornings. Mornings bled into weeks. And soon my little apartment wasn't just mine anymore. It carried his voice, his scent, his laughter, rare, but worth waiting for. I hated how quickly he became part of the air I breathed. Adrian was nothing like me. I was the cautious one, the guy who kept receipts in labeled folders and color-coded his grocery lists. He was chaos wrapped in denim, a storm that refused to be contained. He left his boots by the couch, used my favorite mug without asking, and played music too loud when he thought I was asleep. And yet, I'd catch him staring out the window at 2 a.m., lost in thoughts that made his jaw tighten, like he was holding back a scream only he could hear. I wanted to ask. I wanted to know what ghosts lived behind those guarded eyes. But the silence between us was thick, and I was afraid that if I reached for his darkness, I'd drown in it. Still, it was impossible not to notice the little things. The way he'd fix the leaky faucet when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he'd leave an extra cup of coffee on the counter before heading to his night shift. The way his laughter, rare, jagged, unpolished, lit up the room like a match struck in the dark. One night, after a particularly long day, I found him on the balcony, cigarette dangling between his fingers. The city lights flickered in his eyes, and for the first time, he looked less like a storm and more like a boy who'd been lost for too long. "You ever feel like you don't belong anywhere?" he asked without looking at me. The question hit me harder than it should have. I thought about all the times I'd walked into rooms and felt invisible. About the years I'd spent hiding pieces of myself, afraid they'd make me unlovable. All the time, I admitted. That night was the first time our walls cracked. Just a little, just enough. But cracks, once formed, only grow. Weeks later, it happened, something so small, yet it burned itself into my memory. I was cooking dinner, fumbling with the pan like an idiot, when Adrian came up behind me. Without a word, he reached over, guiding my hand with his. His chest brushed my back, his breath warm against my neck. "Relax," he whispered, voice rough, almost teasing. I froze. Not because I didn't want it, but because I did. Too much. The air between us thickened, heavy with something neither of us dared name. When he finally stepped away, I almost turned, almost said anything, but the words lodged in my throat like stones. After that, everything changed. Every glance lingered longer than it should have. Every touch burned deeper than it was meant to. We circled each other like planets caught in the same orbit, both knowing collision was inevitable, both terrified of the impact. And then came the night I couldn't ignore it anymore. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing but neither of us paying attention. Adrian looked exhausted, his head leaning back against the cushions, eyes half-lidded. Something about the way the dim light softened his features made my chest ache. Before I knew it, I asked, "Why me? Why my place? You could have gone anywhere." His eyes flicked to mine, sharp and unreadable. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said quietly, "Because you looked safe." Safe. The word hit me like a confession. Safe when I'd spent my whole life feeling anything but. Safe when his very presence set my world spinning. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Instead, I just sat there, heart pounding, while the space between us shrank inch by inch until I could feel the warmth of his skin against mine. And in that moment, with the world outside fading into silence, I knew I was already his, whether he wanted me or not. The storm broke on a Thursday night. I had just come back from work, drenched from the sudden downpour, when I found Adrian packing. His clothes were scattered across the couch, his worn-out backpack wide open, swallowing pieces of him. Panic flared in my chest so violently I almost forgot how to breathe. "You're leaving." My voice cracked, unsteady, betraying me. Adrian didn't look at me at first. His hands moved with mechanical precision, folding shirts like he'd done it 1,000 times, like leaving was muscle memory for him. "It's better this way," he muttered. "For both of us." My throat tightened. Better? For who exactly? Because it sure as hell doesn't feel better for me. That made him pause. He looked up, and I saw the war in his eyes, the exhaustion of someone who had spent years convincing himself he didn't deserve more. "I don't belong here," he said quietly. "I never belonged anywhere. I thought maybe if I stayed long enough I could pretend. But you," his voice broke, and he pressed his lips into a thin line, like the words were knives cutting him from the inside. "You make me want things I'm not supposed to want." My heart slammed against my ribs. For a second, the room felt too small to hold everything that was unraveling between us. "You think I don't feel the same?" I stepped closer, rain still dripping from my hair, from my jacket. "You think I don't lie awake every damn night wishing I was braver? That I could just tell you that you're the first thing that's made me feel alive in years?" His shoulders tensed. He shook his head, almost desperate. "You don't understand. I ruin things. People like me, we don't get to keep good things. We break them. You don't get to decide that for me." My voice was fierce, raw. "If you want to leave, fine. But don't stand there and tell me what I can or can't feel. Don't tell me I don't get a say in this." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. His hands trembled as he let the shirt fall from his grip. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked terrified not of me, but of the possibility of being loved. And then, like the storm outside had bled into him, he broke. He dropped onto the couch, face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. I went to him, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. When I sat beside him, he didn't move away. He let me place a hand on his back, let me stay there while the storm inside him raged. After what felt like forever, he whispered, "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I admitted. "But maybe we don't have to know. Maybe we just figure it out together." He lifted his head, eyes red-rimmed, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "And if I screw it up? Then we fix it. As long as you don't run, we can fix anything." The rain outside softened to a drizzle. The quiet in the room shifted less heavy now, more fragile, like something new was being born. And then he kissed me. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, desperate, almost clumsy. But it was real. It was Adrian letting go, letting me in, if only for a moment. His lips were warm and rough, his hands tentative at first until I reached up and pulled him closer. Then he kissed me like he'd been starving for it, like he'd finally found something worth staying for. When we broke apart, breathless, I pressed my forehead against his. "Don't leave." He closed his eyes, and when he spoke, his voice was raw, trembling. "Okay." The days after that weren't magical. They were hard. Adrian still woke up some nights shaking from dreams he wouldn't talk about. I still struggled with the fear that one wrong word would send him running again. But we tried. God, we tried. He started cooking breakfast sometimes, even if it was just burnt toast and scrambled eggs that tasted suspiciously like cardboard. I learned not to color-code the grocery list when we went shopping together, because he'd tease me endlessly until I laughed. Slowly, we built something fragile but real. A life, a rhythm, a kind of love that wasn't about perfection, but about persistence. One evening, months later, we were on the balcony again. This time, no cigarettes, just 2 mugs of coffee, steam curling into the cool night air. Adrian leaned against the railing, looking more at peace than I'd ever seen him. "You ever think about how all of this started?" he asked. I laughed softly. "Yeah, you showing up at my door like some stray cat looking for shelter." He smirked, but there was warmth in it now. Best mistake I ever made. I looked at him then, really looked, and felt with quiet certainty that no matter how messy things got, no matter how many cracks we'd have to mend, this was where I belonged. With him. I'm glad you stayed, I said. He reached for my hand, fingers threading through mine with a gentleness that still surprised me. Me too. The city lights stretched out before us, endless and alive, but for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel lost. I felt found. And as the night wrapped around us, I knew this wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning. Because sometimes the people who stumble into your life uninvited are the ones who end up staying forever. And Adrian wasn't just my roommate anymore. He was home. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.